everybody and welcome back to Spellweaver. Today, this week, finally, the summer promotion. Free for all. I have actually activated it. I have been playing with it. Actually, forget everything I said last week about me recording this on Friday and going through the cards and wasting my entire weekend on the thing. Yeah, that didn't happen. We're recording like the usual on Tuesday, and I still have like 21 hours 53 minutes to take care of that. And what I want to mostly talk about it, before this thing will be over, before this video will be uploaded, I'm pretty sure the thing will be over. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that it actually times out on this Thursday, or maybe even this Wednesday. I don't know. But I really want to talk about the decks we see here, because Free For All offered us option to import as many as 10 different decks with varying strength and skill levels required, using, well, I would say using almost all of the aspects. Dominion is really underrepresented in this setup. Well, I guess one could try saying that it is because one could try saying that from that we can try and say that Dominion is just underpowered, and that's why it's underrepresented in this deck. In these decks. Well, I don't know. Let's say I won't go as far as saying any of that. But I would like to talk a little bit about these decks. So, first of all, like you can see with all the decks, we have these ratings here, saying you the aspects they use, which is pretty good. It's good that it's saying what aspects the deck is using, because it's pretty important. It's saying you the deck's strength, put in 1 to 5 stars. The aggression in 1 to 5 stars, and skill level in 1 to 5 stars. And oh my god, I think I picked like the best deck possible, because it's like all the 3 criteria are perfectly in the middle. I'm not 100% sure about it. Honestly, if I were a total noob player, if I looked at this and I would like not know much about the game, and I would just like run quickly across this stars, trying to decide which deck should I pick, because I don't really know much about the game. I suck. This is like, I just started the game and I saw this promotion. I was like, oh yeah, I can play with all the cards and stuff, and they give me some awesome powerful pre-made decks. What should I choose? I'm like, oh my god, look at this. Oh my god. This has 5 strength and only 3 stars skill level. Oh yeah, I'm totally taking it. Or look at this. It has 4 stars in strength and only 1 star in skill level. So wait, does it mean that I need only 1 star skill level to play? So like anyone can play. Oh, I'm totally taking this. Import. Play, win everything. I will win everything. I will be this. No, this is dumb. They kind of say something about this deck, but honestly, putting 4 stars on Rage Aggro, I would argue this is it's a 5-star deck on strength with 1-star difficulty level. This is insanely powerful deck. It's because of the 5-star aggression. And none of these decks, not even Diogen, not even Corruption Control. Actually, I wouldn't really say that Diogen is that much more powerful than Rage Aggro. It has its drawbacks, and honestly, even factoring the skill level of Diogen and how difficult it is to properly execute this strategy, I wouldn't really say that Diogen is stronger than Rage Aggro. So I think you should really look at this through like the combined score of strength and skill level. Like, basically you would subtract every skill star from the strength, so that would be like 3 stars, but this will be like 1 star strength. Yeah, you got the idea of what I'm trying to say. This is kind of complicated, and I don't think it's fully representative, but anyway, I want to talk about these decks, and I would like to talk about them in the order that like puts them from the weakest deck to the strongest deck. So I would like to discuss the energy, aggro, and zombies first, because these are the only 2 decks with 2 strength. Luckily, we see like no decks with 1 strength star level, which would be insane. Sorry, for the decks that have equal strength levels, I would compare them on their skill level. So, for example, if I say whether Grand Reunion is stronger than the 4-aspect LRK chickens, I would say yes, because its recommended skill level is 1 star lower than the one for 4-aspect chickens. So without further ado, because this might take a while, let's get to talking about these decks. If I'll get some time to talk about this part, I think I'll get to it. But first, let's get to decks. And it's like, I kind of have zombies over here. I think I would talk about energy aggro first, but since zombies are a little bit higher, I mean, it doesn't really matter. They are both rated at 2 stars difficulty and 2 stars power. So let's take a brief look at what is FFA Zombies and why they rate it so poorly. I mean, FFA Zombies, I call it, like, I basically added FFA prefix to all these decks, so I knew that they are the decks imported from the free-for-all, rather than something I came up on my own. I came up with on my own. I wouldn't really say that it's a 2-star deck when it comes to strength, and I would say similar when it comes to energy aggro, because these are 2 pretty solid decks that, let's face it, don't require 2 insane strategies. They are both fairly aggressive decks in which you will be focusing on dropping as much creatures as soon as possible and dealing as much damage to your opponent's face, you know, as quickly as possible, as much damage in as little time as possible. And so this deck offers you like a huge array of 1-drops and a huge array of 2-drops that most of your game will base on. The very important card in this deck is not Duke Horseford, as you might assume, but Tombs of the Damned. And honestly, these tombs, combined with this Undead Necromancer, is what will basically get you through the entire game. Because they will provide, well, maybe with a little help from Noxious Fumes, and maybe Plague Vermins, maybe a little of Consume Spirits, they will provide you enough removal that you will be able to drop more creatures, flood your deck, like take Infected Survivors for example. They are purely for the reason of dropping them, converting them into Zombie Legionnaires ASAP, and wrecking your opponent. See, flooding your opponent is the key in this deck. A lot of Zombie Legionnaires, a lot of Abhorrent Ghouls, a lot of Rotting Remains, a lot of Infected Survivors to turn them into Zombie Legionnaires. Supported all with never-ending stream of Zombie Legionnaires from Tombs of the Damned. Boost everything to deadly from Undead Necromancer, and honestly there is nothing you should be afraid of. You will be just wrecking your opponents. So what's the point of all the other cards? Well, they are all really good. This is one of the most solid decks of all. You have 4 Succubi, and I'd say these are mostly to counter the Abhorrent Ghoul. Looking at the cost of these cards and what benefit they give to you, you would use Succubi in this deck only in 2 situations. Either A, when you are desperately low on health and you need to heal yourself, or B, when you need to quickly finish your opponent. Because let's say you have some cards of your own on the board, but the problem is that your opponent has a decent blockage, and you cannot really push through that much. With that in mind, like, we could also add that you don't have your Undead Necromancer, so you cannot really do much against your opponent in this manner, because you know they will just I lost the word. They will just kill off everything you have, and you cannot wipe the board. But they are down to 3 health or less, and you just happen to have a Succubus on hand. Then, you know, pushing this additional level to be able to drop them and insta-win the game, this is something you might want to do. But this is... I wouldn't go with this deck for more than... I mean, I wouldn't push this deck to 3 levels desperately. I mean, if you would happen to get 3 levels, it's okay. And it's raining again. Oh my god, it just stopped raining. Like, literally 10 or 15 minutes before I started recording, it stopped raining because it was raining before, and now it's raining again. Oh well, that happens. Oh yeah, and the third case where you might be willing to drop the Succubus is if you are really with nothing on the board, but so is your opponent, and you have nothing else to play, then you might drop Succubus for some potential 3 attack. But keep in mind that for 3 attacks, you don't need the Succubus. You have Duke Horsford, you have Insatiable Ghoul, you have Abhorrent Ghoul, and even the Rotting Remains. All of these cards, they are 3 attacks, and they can be dropped a lot earlier than the Succubus. So Succubus in this deck is not for attacks, it's for emergency healing and or crushing your opponent, for the lethal blow to your opponent, if that's what's gonna save you. Sanctum of the Void will help a little bit more with removal, which is great, because with the addition of Sanctum of the Void, I mean, even without... Oh my god. Yep, wrecked. I think I'm gonna close the window because I'm pretty sure this... you will be able to hear on the microphone. So where was I? Oh yeah. That this deck already has a pretty decent removal in form of 4 Noxious Fumes, 4 Consumed Spirits, and Plague Vermins. Keep in mind that if you are able to drop your Undead Necromancer with Tombs of the Damned, combination of these 2 cards is essentially a removal, so you also don't have to worry that much of your opponent flooding the board. So this is really nice deck, and I don't really see why they put it so low. Now FFA Energy Aggro, or should I say just Energy Aggro, is deck that is potentially more towards this low strength than the zombies, because the biggest drawback of this deck is a lack of direct removal. When your opponent starts to drop problematic creatures, your only counter against those is either through Parallel Evolution, although keep in mind that this deck doesn't really have that many cards that would be truly beneficial to use as something to change your opponents into. And if not that, you can preemptively try to block some nastier creatures with Jungle Death Trap. But keep in mind that, well, first of all, it only affects creatures with level 2 or less. And second of all, the problem with Jungle Death Trap is it can be easily countered by your opponent, where they will just drop something they don't mind losing in order to wreck your Jungle Death Trap. So, well, actually, I've played quite a lot with this deck. Simply because I had a quest to play like a 15 or something like that games with nature heroes, and I basically was grinding with this deck to get this quest done. So, yeah, this deck is really an aggro deck, and you should, even more than with zombies, focus on dealing as much damage to your opponent as possible in as little time as possible. So my favorite thing to do with this deck were Runelit Incarnates, which might not seem like much, but this little thing, oh my god, no, this is awful. Yeah, the rain is awful. Anyway, runelets might seem like something potentially weak and puny and not much, but they can grow like infinitely. And even more so, you have charged Aurites. So my favorite thing to do with this deck, when I was sitting at 5 mana or so, I would do something like drop a couple of charged Aurites, follow them with Runelit Incarnates, and that instantly makes a Runelit Incarnate a 5/5 creature. And then I'll use Niva's ability to make them swift, and deliver quick 7 damage straight in my opponent's face. Alternatively, if I were sitting at 5 mana and happened to have a couple of jungle death traps on hand, I would drop the couple of jungle death traps and use the Niva's ability to drop a solid 8 damage in my opponent's face. Although honestly, yeah, getting to this point was much more difficult than getting to 1 Runelit and 2 charged Aurites. So that's the thing. So what you can do in this deck, if you get troublesome creatures on your opponent's end of the board, where there are some things to counter them. You have Millicent Automatons that can either be sacked to deal more damage, but lose them, boosting their ability to get to up to 4 damage without any external help. But then you will be most likely losing them, or you can use them to kill something with 2 health, but to attack as well by boosting their health to 3, so they won't die and you will get 1 more chance to use them. You have Moonlight Patrol, which is ultra quick, which also helps, and can be boosted to +1/+1 using its ability. And also you have the Summoner Druid that helps you drop more things on the board when necessary, like reducing the costs. Force Mage Protector, using the shield emblems, be it on Runelits, be it on Millicent Automatons, be it on Moonlight Patrols, really helps with removing your opponent. Keep in mind that putting a shield emblem on Jungle Death Trap won't prevent it from going away if your opponent drops something. Then there are creatures like Sintra Illusionist, which, to be honest, in most cases I would just DO, because I needed to Divine Offer, because I need more shrines to play other stuff. And there are Empresses of the Forest, which are insanely useful because they boost everything by +1 energy. If you already have a Runelit with a decent amount of energy on him, dropping a couple of those will turn those into easily 10-10 or even 11-11. Then you can use Charged Aurites to potentially block your opponent's creatures from blocking the Runelit. And then you're set. You have a couple of power discharges, but the problem with power discharges is that they don't do much. You can potentially use that to freeze something and then attack it with Millicent Automaton, where you will increase Millicent Automaton's health to don't lose it. Also, you have Gladys the Enchanted, which can use her energy to pay for other creatures' activated abilities, so very useful for Properly executing militant automatons or moonlight patrols if you need some additional attacks or healths on those creatures. Really decent deck. I wouldn't really say that it's that weak of a deck to put it only as a 2-star deck. I think it could really be classified as a 3-star deck, although maybe then we would have to classify it with 3 difficulty. Like as I said before, these are 2 things that you should consider like together, okay? The power of the deck is dependent on how difficult it is to play with this deck. Simple as that. Okay, so let's get on the next to the next deck on the list, which is 4-aspect Elric chickens. And this is next on the deck because this is the first deck with 3 power, 3 stars strength or whatever they called it. Although it is marked with 4 stars difficulty, and well, it is pretty problematic to play. Let's be honest with that. There are many things you have to consider in this deck. And since this is a 4-aspect deck, you are really dependent on Trigons. And if you cannot get your Trigon on the first turn, you're pretty much as good as giving up on it. Okay? Because if you won't get the Trigon, there is so little you can do. I mean, we will be struggling so much with it. On, whatever you will try to do, you will be struggling, and struggling again. All because you will lack levels. This deck, aside from needing all 3 of the good levels, it also requires 2 rage levels to unleash its full potential. And to get that, you will be using the Rage Shrines or preferably New Horizons, which will really help you with it. The main strength of this deck is Chickens, or Shifting Aurites as they are properly called, which gain insanely powerful with every single aspect you have. And keep in mind, dual aspects gain dual levels give dual bonuses to Shifting Aurites, to Chickens. So the very second you get the Order Wisdom and Order Nature or Nature Wisdom levels, instantly your Shifting Aurite becomes 3/1 ranged flying. Okay? So this is really, really powerful. Also, you can get them swift very second you get the rage added. So this is really, really insane. This deck boasts a fairly decent amount of removal in the form of some soul projections, Ray of Righteousness, 4 fireballs, which is basically like no-brainer. Any deck that runs Rage nowadays is running for fireballs, because fireballs are just so cheap and so overpowered that it's stupid not to take them. Some Battlescarred Elders, potentially to get some draws and or more cards. To get more cards and or more attack. And ideally, you would be trying to get to Red Dragons in the later stage of the game to wreck your opponent. There is one Saluxio that will kinda help. There is a lone Force Mage Protector that will kinda help. There is one Venerated Unicorn, which honestly is put into this deck, in my opinion, mostly for the sake of justifying grabbing the nature level. Nothing else. I mean, it offers you this ability to destroy a spell, which you may or may not find that useful. Let's be honest with this. So what I can truly agree with that this is insanely difficult deck to play. And yeah. Well, you see what you can do with this. Cavalry field captains are really powerful, or can be really powerful if used properly. But your main strength here will be 4 shifting Orites with 4 attack and flying, ranged, and swift that your opponent will have a lot of trouble dealing with unless they have some mass removal, which in current day and age is quite likely they will have it. One Fire Blast blasts them all. Decent deck. I don't know what else to say about it. I haven't played that much with it. I mean, basically I have played at least one game with all of these decks. With all of these free-for-all decks, so just for the sake of knowing what I'm dealing with, more or less. There is the Phoenix, there is a couple of Flameburn Incarnates. I would say that this deck kinda has a sort of an identity crisis, because it's trying to cram so much into so little space, but we'll see. I mean, you can see what it is and what it does. Whatever. Not a huge fan, but it's not a bad deck. Definitely worth the 3 strength for difficulty rating that it has. The next one with 3 strength and only 3 difficulty is Grand Reunion deck. So, Grand Reunion. As the name suggests, you will be going for the win condition of the Grand Reunion card, which is if you control Fairy, Elf, Plant, and Spirit, win the game. So, what I can say about this deck is that it could definitely be built differently, although it's not built bad. It has 4 New Horizons, which honestly I kinda question here. Don't get me wrong, New Horizons is really useful card, and with a deck like that, where you will definitely be going to run 2 Wisdom and 2 Nature, because you need 4 levels to play Grand Reunion, it might be a little bit helpful to, grab a level or 2 for free. But personally, I would keep, I'd say, only 2 New Horizons, not 4. They are not that huge of a game changer for this deck. It's not like if you don't get a first turn New Horizons draw, you will fail miserably, because there are decks that work like this. To some extent, 4 aspect is more dependent on whatever it is called. 4 aspect is more dependent on the Trigon rather than the New Horizons. So yeah, it will kinda help, but it's not that important. You have some removal in form of flash freezes and power discharges. And let's be honest, these cards can really work like interchangeably. You can use power freeze to freeze. You can use power charge to freeze something and then deal 1 damage to it using flash freeze. You can use flash freeze to freeze something and deal 1 damage to it with power discharge. So they are really like complementing each other. You also have the silencer, just in case you need to, silence some of your opponent's cards. With a combination with a jungle death trap, this is a good thing to stall your opponent a little while and give you some time to play the Grand Reunion, which is definitely important, especially if you will be able to already get the Grand Reunion in play. Silencer will be insanely powerful by blocking the removal spells, although again, both Silencer and Jungle Death Trap, these are cards that, despite being insanely useful, they are cards that, your conscious opponent who knows what they are doing, who knows what these cards are doing, then, an opponent like that can easily work around them and sacrifice the creatures or cards they don't really need to waste those cards and then play what they really meant to play. Especially later on in the game when, you know, this gets when this gets mostly important, you know. One thing to note in this deck, because this is kinda what I failed on while playing with this deck, you are running only 4 elves. Keep that in mind, because you need an elf to win. And I was actually playing this deck once, and I literally forgot to do the... I mean, I didn't forgot to do the elves, but the thing is that I forgot that I have so little elves in this deck, and I went way too... I went way too nuts, and I wasted Bark Convoy, and I wasted Master Hunter, and I had a problem because I couldn't draw any Thiners, neither from the Grand Reunion nor from the regular draws, and I was struggling to get the elf that I needed to win. Also, your spirits are in form of the wisdom cards, so you don't have the any spirits from the nature cards. Is also something to keep in mind. It's not a bad deck. Let's be honest, but that's not perfect either. Angels, another deck that uses a special win condition. I'll be honest with ya, all those decks that use some special non-typical win conditions are really fun to play, because you are really trying to do something different than usual. In this deck, it is difficult. It has its drawbacks. Like, first of all, you know, with all of that happening in here, Taimia. Taimia is one of the cards I really question in this deck. I don't really see why she's in this deck. I really feel like she's been put into this deck to justify wisdom a little bit more. Although, to be perfectly honest, for me, Saluxio justifies the wisdom enough on his own. He's got this very powerful ability that blocks all the hero abilities for your opponent. And that will be very helpful, especially against heroes like Advanced Zash, Advanced Darius, to some extent Enoch. That will help against cards like Sanctum of the Void, Cathedral of the Night, and maybe a few others, but these definitely will benefit from being blocked. Aside from that, yeah, dropping for 3 angels, yeah, I think it's free, yeah. Dropping 3 angels is difficult, and activating this card is difficult because you need 4 levels to activate it and 5 mana to activate it. So it is really difficult to execute. Like, keep in mind, angels are always expensive. They have a lot of requirements. The most positive thing about this deck to boost this is the 4 angelic temples, and this is like the core, because they turn into angels if you have played enough priests, and this deck has a plenty of priests. Like, you have 3 relic guards, these are priests. You have 4 soundless priestesses, they are priests. You have 2 spell wardens, which will be really, really helpful to block your opponent's removal. Be it fireballs or fire blasts, dragon fires. Assassinates shouldn't really be that much of a concern to you, since these 3 are much stronger than what And so is this one. Are too strong to be affected by assassinates on their own, although, you know, still comboing with something like Plague Vermin and Noxious Fumes will be getting rid of your angels. So this might be a little bit problematic, but keep in mind that also you have the Angel Blessed Knight, which is a priest aside from being a knight, and so is Namir, who is also both knight and a priest at the same time. You will be benefiting from those. Triangelica is mostly to get some protection if you can drop them. Put some Valors on your... put some Might Emblems with her Valor on your angels to get them more or less protected. I'm not sure, is it protected? More or less protected. Yeah, it is fun deck, but kinda difficult. Also, I kinda question the presence of Trigon here. I guess you could use one to get the Order Wisdom level, and then you can like waste your remaining Wisdom Shrines on mana and drawing cards, because you will need a lot of mana with this deck. Other than that, I don't really see Trigons that useful. Not for this deck at least. I mean, your cards are insanely powerful already. Getting them even powerfuler won't really benefit you that much. I mean, they are flyers, so you keep them, you know, in your support lane. You decide what you do with them. You decide whether you want to block or not. You know, unless your opponent has reach, they cannot do anything to them, etc., etc. There is a little bit of a problem with thing like Antariel, because she will be drawing a lot of your opponent's attention, and they will be trying hard to remove her. Guardian of the Faithful, your opponent can purposefully remove her by attacking with 3 creatures to simply get rid of it. And block you from using the Triangelica. Saluxio is really good, I will say simply that. Nice deck. Although I would really argue whether it's really the only 2 stars difficulty, because, yeah, 2 stars skill, because I would really say that it requires a little bit more skill than that to play that. 3 strength, yeah, pretty decent. Kinda works. And now let's move to the 4 strength decks, and here we have Rage, Dominion, Control, which is rated at 4 strength, but at the same time is rated at 4 difficulty, and I will say that it is indeed difficult deck to play with it. I've been playing with it, and I've been struggling with this deck, probably the most of all the other decks. Not even with 4 Chickens Elric I've been struggling that much. This deck is doing something that I'm not too fond of, because for the most part, you will probably end up playing on an empty board, trying to keep your opponent's side of the board empty as well. So, yeah, it is pretty difficult. It was difficult for me to play with this deck. I didn't feel really comfortable around this deck. It is likely it's just me, and this deck is indeed worth 4 strength, and it's just, you know, it's just my fault that I don't feel comfortable around this deck, and that I cannot execute it the way I'd like to be executed. But there is something to be considered. Also, Scatador's Bidding, there is like the key card of this deck, I would say. Maybe not, but it's pretty important. As far as I remember, this is the way I went with this deck. In the end of the day, I dropped Scatador's Bidding on the healing option, and I was trying to play as much cards as possible just to get as much healing as possible to win by overheals. Spoiler alert, didn't work. A lot of legendaries, like you have the Lord Karthus, you have the Prinha, you have the Scatador's Bidding. It will be kind of a problematic to deal with this. I mean, it was for me. There is the battle card Elder with a lot of attack to potentially get you some draws. Oh, I don't know what else to say about it. Yeah, I guess it's a decent deck, but not really for me, I'm afraid. So let's continue to something equally powerful. Wait, have I fucked something up, or they really call DK? Yes, they call DK a 4-star skill level, and I will tell you honestly. I mean, I kind of feel ashamed about admitting it, but I will admit it. This is probably the deck that I like the most out of these decks in the free-for-all that they've given. This deck is insanely fun to play with, although it's insanely BS to play against. I mean, I've had people just insta-resign as soon as I've gotten Azeris on the field, and I could understand it. I mean, let's get over this deck quickly. So, what is this deck? It's decay. Yeah, you will try to mill your opponent out of cards. The only thing you want to do with this deck is make your opponent empty their deck to no cards and make them lose this way. But this is honestly, this is like not the only way that this deck can win. This is like the easiest and most straightforward way for this deck to win. But honestly, I've been playing with this deck a lot, and I would say I really like this deck because it really can win in all the possible manners. With this deck, it is possible to overheal yourself to 40 health, it's possible to wreck your opponent to 0 health, and it's possible to decay your opponent out of cards. So it's a very versatile deck. But once again, it's one of these decks that are heavily dependent on the first draw. Just like the 4-aspect Elric chickens that depends on Trigon being drawn immediately, this deck depends on drawing the New Horizons immediately. And I will more or less tell you, because I don't think we'll get the time to play with this deck today, unluckily. Maybe I will get some quick games recorded for some future use for something, but definitely not in this video. Typical play with this deck I would get is like I would definitely go for New Horizons in hand on the first turn, because without it you're basically doomed. So what you do is you have New Horizons, you have Wisdom Shrine, okay, this is important, and preferably you go second, so you got Spark of Initiative, and if those conditions are met, you are pretty much guaranteed a win. So what you do, you start out by getting the Wisdom level, you drop the you use Spark of Initiative to get the additional mana, you use New Horizons, you burn one of Altar of Dragons to get the Rage level, you end your turn, you start your next turn, you get your Corruption level, and you're set. And basically at this point you are just waiting and preparing, amassing cards and reacting to what your opponent plays. With either Power Discharges, Hunts, or Fire Blasts. Now you will be cautious with that. You won't necessarily you don't necessarily want to go insane on Fire Blasting everything, okay? Because what you really need to do with this deck, I will tell you. You wait for your opponent to drop something. After your opponent already made a mistake and dropped something, what you do is you hunt that. Preferably it's something moderately weak, like 2/2 creature, okay? So they can attack you with that thing, and you will basically be getting enough Enchained Souls to re-heal yourself for every bit of damage they will inflict to you, and not worry too much about anything else. This will help you. Because as soon as you got 4 mana left, what you do? You drop Void Touch Subordinate, you parallel evolution whatever your opponent's creature was that you used Hunt on, you parallel evolution it into Void Touch Subordinate. And then you're set. Yes, you are. Why? I will tell you why. Because this is abusing the fact that Hunt triggers every time a creature is activated. So Void Touch Subordinate activates at the start of each of its controller's turn. So basically it will activate every single time your opponent starts a turn, giving you 2 free Enchained Souls that you can trade for more health, and it will slowly and surely decay your opponent. If you can change more of your opponent's creatures into the into Void Touch Subordinates, you should definitely go for it, because this is a huge strength of this deck. And Hunt. Now, what you do next is you try to get Azeris ASAP. There are many ways of getting Azeris ASAP. If you went the way I just said about getting 3 levels insanely quickly, you should be able to drop Azeris pretty easily. If you don't, you probably have the Azeris in your graveyard from Void Touched or from Wasted Flash of Delirium. Keep in mind I'm saying wasted because using Flash of Delirium if you don't have Azeris is kind of a waste. But you use that to your advantage by looking for Azeris in the graveyard and reanimating her. If you don't have if you have a reanimate in your graveyard, you can always do the Ultra BS strategy of drop Eleanor, take the reanimate from your graveyard to your deck, use the shrine. Keep in mind that if you want to use Eleanor and her ability, you cannot have used shrine in that turn, and you use shrine after you dropped Eleanor. Okay, this is very important. So you drop Eleanor, you put the reanimate on top of your deck, you use a shrine to draw a card, you draw reanimate, of course, you use reanimate to bring back Azeris, you're rolling. You end your turn, your opponent starts your turn, they discard the cards because of Void Touch Subordinate, or snakes as they are called, in the community. For fun, I guess. And then you use Azeris' ability to get rid of something, of one of your opponent's creature preferably. And while you can use this Azeris' ability, whenever the enemy hero decays card, select one of those cards. Azeris deals damage equal to that card's mana cost to an enemy creature or hero. You can use that to kill your opponent, and that's a viable strategy. What I think is even easier to do is use this ability to wreck your opponent's creatures so they have nothing to counter you with, so then you can open more attacks with Azeris. And then you just keep on decaying their cards. And once you get Azeris in play, use as much parallel evolutions to get as many Void Touch Subordinates on your opponent's end. Use all the flashes of Delirium you have. Use all the Infernal Vultures you have to decay your opponent as much, and make sure that they have nothing else on board rather than your created Void Touch Subordinates. There is also one more important thing. You might be saying, yeah, but why do I want to put the Void Touch Subordinates on my opponent's end of the board if it will block the Azeris attacks? Honestly, so many times I've played with this deck, I wouldn't even bother attacking with Azeris. I would just keep her sitting in my support line and dealing damage using her second ability of dealing damage for the decayed card's cost, and decaying cards through Void Touch, through Flashes of Delirium, through Infernal Vultures, and not bothering. And when my opponent kills it, I drop another. I don't have, I reanimate. I don't have reanimate, I reuse reanimate using Elinor all over and over again. Honestly, I've been having games with like losing Azorius like 10 times. And I was still able to play another one, and another one, and another one. You might be asking, so wait a second, Devirk, what are you saying? How come 10 times? You have only 4 reanimates and 4 Azoriuses. Like that adds up to 8. Yes, but I can reuse reanimate 3 more times using Elinor. So that adds up to a total of 11 uses of Azorius. Plus, I can use Infernal Vulture's counter ability to draw cards from my graveyard to my deck. I can draw Azoriuses, and that basically gives me like infinite Azoriuses. Also, Enoch's ability, where you can sacrifice 1 card and heal for every other creature you have. There is Altar of Dragons, but I don't really use that ability that often with this deck. It's not really worth the risk of decaying more cards than you really need. I mean, you're not decaying, but you're losing cards from hand, and you might need those cards in hand. Yeah, but I don't think I finished that. Even if you want to attack with Azorius, this is why you put hunts on the Void Touch subordinates you create on your opponent's end of the board, because they will grant you infinite Enchained Souls. And in this deck, you burn those instantly, to just enough that they are not slaves anymore, so you can declare your Enchained Souls as attackers against the Void Touch subordinates, so Void Touch subordinates can't block anything. Then you engage them in combat, so they activate again, they spawn you even more souls. This is insane. Like, get one of these with a couple of hands on it, and your opponent with no way of sacrificing his own creatures, and he's doomed. So this deck, oh, it's awful. This deck is really awful, but I really, really enjoy playing with it. And I kind of feel like buying Enoch, as long as he's still OP, so I'm thinking about it. Anyway, we have 3 more decks to talk about, and I'm pretty sure I'm running out of time. So, yeah, I would definitely put 5 stars of strength on this deck, and I think I would subtract 1 skill rating from that to let it be at 3 skill rating. Maybe keep it only 4 strength, but definitely at 3 skill rating. I mean, one of these has to go, one of these has to be changed, okay? Because 4/4 is not representative of this deck. 3 more decks. Rage Aggro, and this one I would kind of discuss like comparing to my aggro deck and what is similar, what is different. In short, it turns out my deck would be more of a control aggro deck rather than a flat aggro deck. Since, yeah, I go into a lot of control through cards like Disciple of Zash, through Flame Runes, through Fire God Temples. This gives me a lot more control over my opponent's end of the board, allowing me to play attacks more in kind of my pace. Well, this deck pretty decent. It focuses on goblins a little bit more with the addition of 4 goblin fireworkers and 4 firebrand goblins, which turn all the other goblins swift, which is insanely helpful after you drop a Gibbo and Ronnie, or even worse, a couple of Gibbos and Ronnies while you have that thing in play. Insane. There are some fire serpents that are insanely overpowered, and they are swift as well. 4 lizards, 4 goblins, 4 fireballs, 4 words of fire. The only reason I don't have 4 words of fire in this deck is because, as far as I remember, I didn't have 4 words of fire here. If I had, I wouldn't mind sacrificing some of the cards I have here, be it Boiling Bloods, Ancestral's Guide, whatever, to get more words of fire. Tortured Orcs, I mean, I am kind of skeptical about these cards because they are slaves, although, let's face it, you have Gibbos and Ronnies, you have a lot of 1-drops, 2-drops, you should easily have enough cards to overpower the to unslave the orcs that you will be dropping. So that shouldn't be really that much of a problem. I am kind of surprised this deck is not seeing the forced labor in here, because it could also be useful. I'm not 100% fond of Black Market and how it works. I know it's a decent card and it has its place, but I would really think about maybe turning these two Black Markets into two forced labors. Why not? Yeah, definitely. This deck is rated at 4 difficulty, at 4 strength, 1 difficulty, and I truly agree with this. Aggro decks are the easiest to play, and this is like the purest aggro that you can ever have, with like literally no skill involved. Just drop everything, smash your opponent's face, period. No thinking required, just go for it. I'm surprised it's not rated at 5 strength, because honestly, the decks that are rated at 5 strength, well, maybe they are more powerful, maybe they are more versatile and can be countered that easily as this one, but they are so difficult to play that you will never get the same results if you don't have the required skill. So this is why I'm saying that the skill really, really makes a lot in this, you know, difficulty to skill, or power to skill ratio thing, that I would really call this deck a 5 stars power deck. And yeah, one star difficulty is obvious, but I would really call it a 5-star power. Anyway, last two decks. So we're getting to Diogen on Hermelion, which is a nice deck. Really running out of time right here. I think we are like 5 minutes to 1 hour mark. What you will be doing with this deck, one word. Well, actually 2 words. Might Emblems. Period. This is all this deck is about. Diogen gives Valor 1 to everything that doesn't have Valor. All the other cards you have Valor. Okay? Level 1 cards don't have Valor, but you will be giving them through Diogen to Temple Guards, to Elf Scouts, to Jungle Death Traps. Triangelica and Master Hunter have Valor. Tren can put Might Emblems on himself. Once again, I'm not 100% sure about these Trigons over here. It's like you're not using more than 2 aspects, so you can really do it with nothing but shrines. I guess the intention is to use the Trigons in this deck more as a blessings to get 1 attack, 1 HP. Actually, how much aggression they rate on this deck? Well, 3 stars, so... Oh, yeah, because this is aggression, but you cannot really pull that aggression so quickly. Yeah, this has 5. Well, zombies have only 4. I would put 4 aggression on zombies. This is zombie aggro after all. Yeah, but it is kind of a slower aggro. It will take a little bit longer to get this aggro to work, but still it is aggro. A fair bit of removal, 2 Ray of Righteous Dress, 2 Arrow Barrages, 2 Holy Radiances. Also, as I said before, Jungle Death Trap kinda works as a removal, although it can be worked around by your opponents if they are self-conscious enough to work around it properly. And Hermelion, so it's like once you get everything OP with insane amount of Might Emblems, you basically launch an attack, you use Hermelion again, you launch another attack, you wreck your opponent's GG. You win. This deck is purely going into one and only thing, like deal insane amounts of damage straight to your opponent's face. Period. It is marked at 4 difficulty. I wouldn't really say that it's that difficult. I wouldn't really say that it's that powerful. You know, it is powerful indeed, but it requires skill to execute it properly. That's what, in my opinion, the amount of skill that this deck requires really doesn't qualify it as 5 strength. Because in my opinion, way too many players will have problems with properly executing this deck. And that might be problematic for them. While Whew. While on its own, I don't think it's really that powerful. Yeah, honestly, compared to the Rage Aggro, I think Rage Aggro is stronger simply because it can be executed more easily. Because it's not really only in the how much it's not really only in how much strength the deck has on its own, but how much work is required to unleash that strength. And while this deck might have a little bit more strength than Rage Aggro, unleashing this strength is much more difficult than in Rage Aggro. So this is why I think that overall Rage Aggro is a stronger deck than this and requires less skill, which overall makes it better. Now the deck with 5-star strength rating and only 3 stars difficulty rating, Corruption Control deck. This is a fairly difficult deck to play. And this is a control deck. This is once again deck going not entirely to my likings. Because this will be the deck that you will be probably running with empty or almost empty board for the most part of the game. But also this deck does a really great job at keeping your opponent's end of the board empty. And what you basically do is like you keep your opponent's end of the board empty. Sorry. For long enough to drop your Succubi, drop your Bezarok, and get to insta-winning. The enemy hero sacrifices creatures with a combined level of at least 3 when Bezarok dies, summon demons with a combined level of 3 and different names on the field. Yeah. So basically you stall your opponent for as long as you can drop your overpowered cards and attack with them insanely fast. Like, you have Suffocates, you have Hans, well, Hans not really for that, but you have Suffocates, you have Death Curse Shamans, you have Consume Spirits, you have Noxious Fumes, Words of Pains, Curse of Riches, you have Sanctum of the Void, all these cards that help you keep the board empty. Mesmerizing Spirit to help keep your opponent's hand empty. Honestly, I'm not really sure if that deck is really that powerful. I mean, it is definitely on par with Diogen's strength, okay? Don't get me wrong, this is a powerful deck. But I think... Sorry, this might have sounded weird, but I need to take a drink. I mean, I'm talking a lot today. And it's freaking hot, so... It takes its toll, and, you know, hydration is important. Like, you are freaking 70% water or something like that, and you need to drink a lot. Humans need to drink a lot. Keep in mind, hydrating is important. Anyway, I wanted to say that, in my opinion, the reason why this deck is put into the free-for-all summer promotion thing, and why it's rated so high, the main reason for all of that is because this is one of the very few decks that stays in game for so long with, I'm not sure, I wouldn't really dare say that no changes, but with very few, very minor changes. And it stays in game for so long and is used on, you know, high-level competitive plays. You know, still, despite all the new cards being added, despite all the balance changes to the games, etc., etc., Mono Corruption Control stays strong, stays, you know, in one place. It's still, you know, seeing a moderate amount of play on the high-level competitive games. So I guess this is most reason why it's here. I'm not sure if it's really only 3 difficulty deck. I mean, let's face it, I did not struggle with this as much as I did with Rage Dominion Control. This was definitely not the deck I felt comfortable with. With this one I felt a little bit more comfortable. but still not too insane. I actually didn't get to play the Devirk with this deck. I think I got wrecked too quickly. I don't remember playing with this deck. Honestly. I mean, I am sure I played with this deck, because I played with all the decks. But I totally don't remember playing with this deck. I don't know what I was doing with this deck. I don't recall playing Devirk. I don't recall playing Bloodwitch Harpies. Unless I got tracked like really quickly into the game without being able to play anything. I don't know. Might be the case. Yeah, but I think this deck got here only, or not only, but mostly because of its kind of sort of legendary status in the community. Wow, right now. I think well, I know I talked about all the decks. I think we've bridged the 1 hour mark. So I'm just gonna get a quick say about what is this part. Well, this part is bullshit, because you don't get to buy your shrines here. I was kind of thinking about maybe going for, because you can purchase the foil version of the cards, so I was kind of thinking maybe going and trying to get the foil versions of the shrines. That would be fun. What kind of sucks is that even at 30 wins, sorry, at 50% discount, I wouldn't afford foil version of Enoch. So I'm really considering whether I want to really buy anything or not, because the only thing that I really came with intention to buying in here after I activated it, I think I kind of want the shiny version of Enoch, so I think I'll try to grind 30 wins with that thing to get the shiny version. But unless I'll get a quest that will give me at least 170 crystals before the promotion ends, I won't be able to do that. And if I am to get the regular version, I think I would rather go and get the Enoch pack for 150,000 gold, which I actually have enough. Oh, and I did grind a level while getting all these wins. I've got an Alexa pack. Really? Really, Alexa? Oh my god. I am really disappointed. Anything would be better than that. Well, maybe only Erulak would be equally disappointing. Did I get this? Did I get his name right? Burk. Sorry, Burk. Only Burk would probably be equally disappointing. Anything else I would be moderately happy with. Like, yeah, beat the Amalric, Elric, although that definitely is not the top choice. Kainu. Or, well, as I said, I won't be really fond of that one either, but Zash the Annihilator, Advanced Zash would be nice, Koronis would be nice, Enoch would be perfect, Advanced Nepharos would be decent. But I have gotten Alexa. Bloody brilliant. So yeah, so I thought about getting this one, but not really happening. Then I thought that maybe shiny shrines would be fun, but I cannot seem to find not even the skill shrines, so that really sucks. I mean, I wanted primary shrines primarily in the shiny version, but I broke. Well, that was unintentional. That was that was an error on my end. Sorry. I lost the thread of what I'm saying because actually I took a liberty and whatever. Did something else after I broke. Yeah, but shrines don't seem to be available in here. Aside from that, oh, One thing worth noting, and too bad we're not getting this recorded because that's way too long of a video already. One thing I wanted to mention, really fun. It turns out if you would go to quick battle and play against the AI, regardless of the AI chosen, it wouldn't count. But if you go into a friendly game and play against the computer if no match is found, those AI battles will count for these wins. I know for a fact because the Nepharos game I played against the AI and I won it, and it was like the only game I played with the Nepharos, and I have like one win. There is win one, owned one. Yeah, surprisingly I got only 4 wins with Niva. Yeah, after finishing like 15 games. That explains a lot. Okay, I finished some of those on easy AI just to get it quickly done, because I wanted to finish the quest quickly. So I wasn't playing like all 14 games, or 15 or whatever. Also, I played my first level 20 plus free-for-all on with the DK deck. Yeah, my first level 20 plus free-for-all, and I got wrecked by the current Masters champion. Nice. Too bad I did not record it. I regret it after the fact. Anyway, we're way too long. That would be it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like, subscribe, share, leave a comment. Remember to leave some comments. Comments are always appreciated. It's like if I don't feel like replying to your comment in any significant way, I will leave you the thumbs up under your comment. So I read those, even if I don't seem to reply. I mean, sometimes it's not really, there is no point in replying. So I go with just this one simple token. 15 quick battles. Yeah, remember to subscribe if you have already subscribed. There is this little little bell button next to the subscribe button that you can press to get notified if you would like to get spammed every time I post a new video, which is once a week. Every Thursday evening UTC. Or GMT, however you wanna call it. Anyway, yeah. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. Take care.